All right, this is Redzone 5B, still talking about rate of change and slope, and there's some questions on Y-intercept and initial value as well. So Charles needs to fill a large fish tank with water. He has two hoses. Hose A is in the graph, and they give you some information about hose B. They want to know which one's faster in gallons per minute and what is that rate. So when you see keywords like gallons per minute, that tells you we're looking for the slope or the rate of change. So to find the slope in the graph, you could do rise over run. You can write down two of the coordinates and do the slope formula. Or if you notice, this graph is proportional because it starts at the origin. So you can actually just take the y value and divide it by the x value. So 12 divided by 2 equals 6. Hose B, and they want to know gallons per minute. So whenever you write that as a fraction, the per unit goes in the bottom. So it does 110 gallons in 10 minutes. And if I divide that, that's 11 gallons per minute. So hose B is faster than hose A. Sorry, hose A. Hose B is faster. And you have to include the rate, 11 gallons per minute. All right, next question. Two functions, which one has a greater rate of change? And you have to include the values, so which means you have to show your work and show where you found the rate of change. So function A is a table. You can pick two of the points and do the slope formula. That's the way I've always done it since I was in 8th grade. 8th, 9th, high school, college. I just picked 2 points to do the slope formula, but you could do the jumps, but I'll show you the slope formula. 7 minus 5 over 2 minus 1 equals 2 over 1. So the slope of function A is 1. I'm sorry, it's 2. And on the graph, I'm going to do rise over run. 1, 2, 3, 1. So 3 over 1, so it's 3. So which one has a greater? B is greater. Because 3 is greater than 2. Good luck reading that. If you're listening, then you know what it says. All right, so this next question, they're telling you that these three ordered pairs represent a linear function, meaning a straight line. Remember that a straight line always has a constant rate of change. So what could be the value of x and y? There's actually an infinite amount of answers here, but I can show you the answer that came up the most. So let me just rewrite these so I have a little more room to work. And it's telling you it's linear, meaning that these points should be following some kind of a pattern. If we could figure out what that pattern is, we could figure out the missing coordinate. And the way to do that is by doing those jumps. How much is the x value changing? That's the pattern we're looking for. Well, it went from 3/4 to 1 1/4, so that's plus 1/2. So then if I do another plus 1/2, I'll get 1 3/4. Now the y values went up plus 1 1/2, so I'm just going to add another 1 1/2, and that'll be 9 1/4. So this is one possible answer for this question. It's actually an infinite amount as long as you have appropriate work. This is the easiest way to do this one. The hardest part about this is that it was fractions and mixed numbers. Another way you could have done this, you could have found the slope between these 2 points and then use that to find another point. You could have used the slope to find the y-intercept and you make the y-intercept your third point, but this was the easiest way. Okay, so you just have to pick the graph that goes with it. So the first thing says it's increasing and linear between -5 and 3. So in graph A, between -5 and -3, definitely increasing, definitely linear. In graph B, definitely increasing, definitely linear. In graph C, same thing. And in graph D, all right, so that first bullet point doesn't help us because they're all increasing and linear between -5 and 3. Now the next one says it remains constant between -3 and 0. Graph A does. Graph B, nope, that's actually decreasing and nonlinear. So this one's out. Graph C, good, constant, and graph D, constant, good. So we're done with the second one. I've got a different color. It's decreasing and linear between 0 and 3. Graph A looks good. Graph C is increasing, that's out. And graph D looks good, decreasing and linear. Which brings us to the last one. I'll use green, increasing and nonlinear. Well, graph A is increasing, but that's linear. Graph D, that's increasing and nonlinear. So there's our answer. We need to figure out the equation. So to write an equation, and it looks like all the equations are in slope-intercept form, we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. You can find the slope by choosing 2 points and using the slope formula, or by doing the jumps and figuring out what the pattern is. So the y values are going up 1,000, the x values are going up 4, 1,000 over 4 equals 250. So the slope is 250, which already gets rid of choice B and D. Now we just have to figure out if there's a y-intercept or not. You could figure out if there's a y-intercept by working backwards on the graph. So instead of doing +4, I'll do -4. That way I'll get to 0. And instead of doing +1,000, I'll do -1,000. And that'll get me to 500. So it has a y-intercept of 500. Choice C. Here's a table for F and an equation for G, which statement's true. We're going to have to figure out the rate of change from the table. So I can see that the y values are going up 6, the x values are going up 2. 6 over 2 is 3. So the rate of change of function g is less because 2 is less than 3. Well, the rate of change of g is 4, so that's wrong. The rate of change of g, 4 is less than 9. Well, the rate of change isn't 9, so we're good there. I'm jumping ahead to D. That looks like it has the numbers I need. The rate of change of function g is greater than f because 4 is greater than 3. Yes, 4, 3, that's what we wanted. Here's 2 photographers and their prices. You could see that photographer A charges an initial fee and then also an hourly rate. And photographer B, we don't know, but it's probably the same idea. So first, let's figure out the slope of each. In photographer A, I'm going to do rise over run. So up 25 over 1. So the cost per hour for photographer A is 25. And that's also the initial value. So y equals 25x plus 25. For photographer B, I can see that it went up 30 for 2 hours. 30 over 2 is 15. So 15 for the 2 hours. So photographer A charges 15 per hour more than B. No. Photographer B charges 15 per hour more than A. No. Photographer A's equipment fee is $25 less than photographer B. Well, I got to figure out photographer B, so I'm going to work backwards to get to 0. Work backwards, that's 50. So 50 versus 25. So photographer A's equipment fee is 25 less than photographer B's. That's correct. Here's 2 airplanes, and we're talking about the distance they travel in minutes. This one's hard to look at because it looks like they're going the exact same speed, but I noticed that the y-axes are counting by different amounts, so you have to be very careful. And then airplane C is traveling at a different speed based on the equation. So let's figure out the speeds for each one. For A, you have to look for 2 good points. I'm going to use the origin, and there isn't really a good one. I mean, 1,6 looks okay, but it's a little under the corner, but that's probably the closest one. So I'm going to say about 6. For B, it's perfect right at 1,4. So this one is 4 miles per minute. Miles per minute. The first one was about 6. And 27 divided by 6 for C, it's 4.5. So C is 4.5. So the cruising speed of airplane C is less than the cruising speeds of both A and B. That's not true because B is the smallest. The cruising speed for C is greater than both. That's not true because A is the biggest. It's great. So airplane C is greater than A but less than B. No. So it must be D, and that's the answer. They give you this graph for a radar device, a radar picture like a satellite that's spinning in a circle, and it tells you how many revolutions it's making, how many spins in how many minutes. And we just have to pick the table that's exactly twice the rate. So the first thing I need to do is figure out the rate from the graph. That would be the slope. Since it goes through the origin, I just need to find one good point, which would be this one. So 30 over 2 equals 15. So I need to find one that's twice the rate. So I need to look for one that has a rate of 30. So now I need to do the slope formula in each one until I find one that has a rate of 30. I'm going to start at choice D, just out of random guessing. So that's plus 2 plus 60. 60 over 2 equals 30. Yep, that's the answer. How lucky. They give you a table. They call it function B, and they say it's linear. Function L represents a linear equation. They want you to compare them by telling you which one has the greater rate of change and y-intercept. Okay, so the rate of change in the table, we could just do the jumps or the slope formula. I'm not going to go through it. If you want someone to go through it with you, reach out to your teachers. But it's going up 6, up 2, 6 over 2 equals 3. And the y-intercept would be when x is 0, so it's right in the middle there, and right in the middle of -1 and 5 is 2. So the y-intercept is 2. Now I look at L, and it has a slope of 6 and a y-intercept of 4. So now I need to type my answer. Function L has the greater rate of change and the greater y-intercept. Because 6 is greater than 3 and 4 is greater than 2. And that's it. So if you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, keep doing what you should be doing. This is going to help you in high school. Have a good day.